Chris here, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to this week's reading vlog. So this week is the first week of this round of the Final Book Support Group, so I'm going to be really focusing on sequels the next 2 weeks. I have quite a few of them on my TBR, so I'm hoping that somehow, someway, I might be able to get through all of them during the next 2 weeks, though. That was the original plan before the Discord of Gods came in at the library, which is the fifth and final book in the A Chorus of Dragons series. I have given all 4 books so far 5 stars. This is the final book in that series, and I really want to read it. So that could change my plans because I don't currently have it. I haven't picked it up from the library yet, but if it's anything like the others, it's over 500 pages easy. So somehow I don't think that'll be a quick read. The others haven't been, even though I am super engrossed in them. So we'll see. I may try to hold off because I really want to savor that last book and not feel like I'm trying to rush through it so that I can get through the rest of my TBR. So maybe it is better if I focus on all of the sequels on my TBR and try to get through as many of them, because a bunch of them are a lot easier. I have a lot of middle grade, and I have some graphic novels and some highly anticipated reads besides, the Discord of God. So I think that's going to be my focus. Today, I read The Island of Glass. So this fulfills the prompt of series veteran because I've had this since like 2016 when it came out. And I can now officially say I have finished the series. I think I'm going like 3 stars. It was all right for what it is. This is a romance series that also has fantastical elements, and I used to love Nora Roberts books, and at some point my reading taste changed and they just don't hit the mark. And this series was definitely demonstrative of that. This was the first time I struggled to finish one of her series, or even didn't just devour it the moment I got my hands on all of the books in the series. So yeah, I don't know if her writing is for me. I haven't had any interest in any of the books she's released since. I believe I did read a standalone, and that one was all right. Like, I enjoyed it, but I don't know. It's not a genre, romance in general, that calls to me. So it's not something I'm going to typically pick up anyways. And if I am, it's probably going to be more of a book that is a fantasy or historical fiction or something that features romance, as opposed to this, which what I would say is, it's not a super romantic book by any stretch of the imagination. And those are the types of romances I would probably be more inclined to reach for nowadays, like, your Hallmark type movie romances. And that's not what this is because of the fantastical elements, but the fantastical elements are soft. Like, it's not super in-depth. It's not a huge focusing factor. I mean, it's important, but, like, I'm reading things like, the A Chorus of Dragons series. I want my fantasy to be more in-depth and meatier. So I don't necessarily have plans to read anything more by her, but never say never. She could release a series that I hear a lot of really good things about and decide to check it out, because her writing is fine. Like, I click with her writing. I just didn't like the contents of the series. But it is over and done with now. I can check a series off my list, and the first prompt, and the first book in a series for this readathon. My plan for tonight before bed is to read the 3rd Enola Holmes book. I am buddy reading this with Naomi from Naomi's Bookshelf, and I was actually supposed to read it today, and it completely slipped my mind. I was having a really bad allergy day and just felt very logy and lethargic, and I had gotten into my head that I wanted to get this out of the way ASAP, so I had focused on this instead of this, and I had meant to get to this today. So my plan before bed is to read this. It will not take me that long. It's not that long of a book, so I should be able to smash this one out before bed, and then when I get up tomorrow, I can move on to something else, or if I'm still feeling awake, I can read something else. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to go read this, and I will try to check back in with you tomorrow because I will have this finished, but you know how good I am about updating my vlogs. We'll see. So I'm going to go read, and I will check back in with you soon, hopefully. 7:30 in the morning on Wednesday, and I'm trying to be more proactive about updating since I'm planning on reading so much, and so far I'm doing that. I hit my 200 page count on Tuesday, and Monday. So far, so good. So last night before bed, I did indeed read The Case of the Bizarre Bouquet, and I think I'm going 4.5 stars on this. Maybe even 5. We'll see how I'm feeling in a couple days. This is the third book in the Enola Holmes series, and one of the things I was hoping for in this book was a better balance of mystery and like world building and character building, because we had a lot of world building and character building in the first 2 books. But considering we're following the younger sister of Sherlock Holmes, I was expecting there to be more mystery. And this one definitely delivered on that front. At the very beginning of the book, you're immediately thrown into the mystery, so there's no waiting a third of the way through the book to get to the mystery part. I'm hoping that will continue in future books, and I really enjoyed this one, not just with the mystery, but I thought it had a really good balance because we did see more of the world and continue with little bits and pieces that helped build Enola's world and what it was like for her during this time period. And we got to see character development. And I like how Nancy Springer managed to weave all 3 in and out and have them make complete sense within the context of the story. These aren't exactly the hardest mysteries to solve, but given the age group that the books are targeted for, I don't mind that as much. I mean, I've read more complicated and more interesting mysteries, but I really like Enola as a character, so I'm invested in her story and her journey and where things are going with her and the obstacles she's trying to overcome, given the fact that she's a teenage girl trying to survive on her own in like Victorian London. So definitely enjoyed this. We'll be continuing on with the series, as me and Naomi are planning on continuing to buddy read this series in the hopes of being caught up before the new book comes out later this year. Then I wasn't quite tired, so I picked up a treasury of classic fairy tales by Chris Colfer and read Cinderella and Hansel and Gretel, and I thought they were both good. They reminded me of exactly the way I thought they were in my childhood. They also have these gorgeous illustrations. So like this is a full page illustration of Cinderella getting changed into her gown by her fairy godmother. And there are also smaller illustrations. So here is Cinderella and her stepmom and her stepsisters. And I think that definitely adds to the whimsy of this book and the fairy tale vibes. I'm only 2 in, but I'm enjoying them. And I'm thinking this could be a very fun addition, especially when you've read the rest of the Land of Story series. I'm going to be curious to see if we're getting the like classic version or whether we will see hints of the Land of Stories in here, because with the Land of Stories, you're following twins who end up traveling to a world where these stories are real. And it is interesting to see the differences in those stories in the main books. So I'm curious to see whether these are going to be like the version of the fairy tales that I grew up with, or whether they will at all be influenced by the real story. So I'm enjoying this, and hopefully we'll continue some more of this tonight. And I've also started A Case of Cat and Mouse, which is the 12th book in the Magical Cats mystery series, and I'm on page 112. So I'm making really good progress in this. In this one, Kathleen is helping out at like a food competition show and ends up finding one of the judges dead, and is now starting to put the pieces together as to what happened to this judge and why. I mean, it's a cozy mystery. They all kind of had the same premise, so not surprising, but I'm enjoying this and being back in this world with Kathleen and her adorable little kitties, and I'm very, very intrigued to find out what happened to this judge. The only other update I have is that I have read some more of the 1619 Project. I didn't yesterday, but I did today. I'm now on page 46, so still quite the ways to go, but I do find this quite interesting. And it is also interesting that some of this is relevant to the debate about Roe v. Wade and constitutional rights, and they talk about the Constitution and what that meant for the enslaved Black people at the time when they wrote the Constitution, and how the we in the we the people and the rights for those people really meant white men. And I think that is so interesting and, again, relevant to what is going on in the current world, not just with the way Black people are still treated in America, but trans rights and now women's rights. And it is interesting learning about this from a different perspective than the one I remember learning about in school, because I already feel like I'm learning something and getting a different viewpoint on something that was so horrifically awful. And there was a point in here when they talked about how young Black men went and fought in World War II. And we fought in World War II because we, the American people, were saying that what they were doing to the Jews was wrong. And yet we still discriminated against people in our own country, which is just mind-blowing. I never even thought of it that way, that we were going and saying this thing they're doing to the Jews is bad while also doing something similar, but it was fine that we were doing it. It makes you think, like, what book? I read The Rose Code. I read The Rose Code recently, and in that book, they kept wondering when the Americans were going to join the war because this was set in Britain. And when they finally did, it dawned on me that the way it was said is the Americans didn't enter World War II until we were attacked. And that was another thing I had never thought about, that if they had never attacked us, would we have gotten involved? I don't know the answer to that question, but it is interesting that maybe it wasn't so much that we went, oh, well, that's wrong, you shouldn't be doing that, to the point that we were willing to, step up and put our money and our military and our people on the line to say, no, this is wrong, we won't stand for this. But we stepped up when our people got killed. When it was our people under attack, and it was like, were we just going to continue to bury our heads in the sand and pretend that this atrocious thing was not happening overseas? So it is interesting that I've read two books that have had me, like The Rose Code and now this one, that have had me questioning my history, which you should do. You should ask questions. You should wonder about decisions people made before you and what their thought process was, and maybe wonder what decisions you would have made had you also been in their shoes. So this is very interesting, and I'm curious to see what else this teaches me, especially considering, like I said, I'm already drawing some interesting comparisons to things that are going on in current day that aren't necessarily about Black people and the struggle they're going through, though that is not to be minimized in any way, shape, or form, but just the interesting parallels of the fact that there are people in our country right now who seem to have no problem going after the rights of anybody who isn't a straight white male. So I do plan to continue reading this, though, like I said, in small increments, because it's a lot of information and I want to make sure that I'm taking it in and not burning myself out on it. And in the meantime, I think I'm going to try to finish these today. We'll see. This one less so, because like I said, it's fairy tales, so it's kind of great for like bedtime reading, but definitely this should be finished today. And then I have no idea what I'm going to go to, though I have to resist because I have Discord of Gods in my house. And I really, 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 really want to read it. And it is a sequel, and it would finish a series, but it was not one I budgeted for. So I'm going to try to make some rapid progress with the series I had so that I can try to squeeze that in, because like I said, I really, 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 really want to read it. So I'm going to stop talking now so that I can go read, because the sooner I stop talking, the sooner I can start reading, and the sooner I start reading, the more I can finish, and the faster I can get to Discord of Gods. So I will check in with you all tomorrow. So it is Friday evening, and I wanted to do a quick check-in as I have finished some books. First up, I finished What the Hex by Sophie Eskenazi, and this is the second book in the Witches of Brooklyn series, and we're following a young girl named Effie, who in the first book moves in with her aunt after her parents die and ends up finding out that her aunt is a witch and has magic and that she might as well. This is a middle grade graphic novel series, so it's a really quick, easy read. And I have to say, I enjoyed this. I think I'm going like 4 stars on this. I liked seeing how Effie's character developed in this book and how they managed to continue the story of Effie learning about magic and settling into her life with her aunt and her new friends. This is a really fun middle grade fantasy graphic novel series, so I definitely plan to continue it. I'm happy to have a graphic novel series that I'm really into that's middle grade, so I look forward to book 3 whenever that comes out. Then I finished A Case of Cat and Mouse, and I think I'm gonna go 4.5 stars on this. I really enjoyed this one. I don't remember if I said, but we're following Kathleen, who is a librarian, and she has 2 very interesting cats, Hercules and Ellen. And in this book, she is working on the set of like a cooking reality show as like a researcher, so she can find out like interesting facts about the dish they're going to serve or an ingredient or stuff like that. And she ends up finding a dead body on the set and has to try to piece together who did it. I definitely enjoyed the mystery aspect of this book. It felt like there were seeds being dropped in this book that could pertain to future books, which is the thing that left me off from giving this 5 stars, because there were certain things that happened and I'm confused as to why they happened, but they feel like maybe it'll make sense if I read the next few books in the series because they weren't supposed to make sense yet. I thought this was another solid addition to the series, and we'll hopefully read book 13 soon. I've also finished The Mapmakers by Tamsin Merchant. This is the sequel to The Hatmakers, and basically in this series we're following a young girl named Cordelia who is a hat maker. She has the ability to weave magic into hats, and there are a bunch of different kinds of makers of different various clothing, and they don't really get along. And in the first book, her dad goes missing, and while she's trying to find out what happened to him because she's the only person in her family who believes he's still alive, she is also watching her family work on a hat for the princess. And they aren't the only makers who are working on items of clothing for the princess, and things get a bit screwy from there. I really enjoyed the first one, and I didn't enjoy the sequel quite as much. I think I'm going 4 stars on this, whereas I gave the first book 5 stars. But I did still really enjoy this book. I loved getting to see Cordelia's relationships develop and how much her confidence has grown compared to the first book, as a lot of things have changed in her life since the first book, so it was interesting to see that growth and development continue on through this book. I don't know if there's going to be another book in this series because it says return to Cordelia's vibrant London in this joyous and action-packed conclusion. So this may just be a duology, I don't know, but if there are more books written in this series, I will read them. Or if she writes like companion novels to the series where maybe we're following a different character but we're in the same world, I would definitely read them because I've really enjoyed both of these books and would definitely be down to spend more time in this world. I have started Wildwood Imperium and definitely not enjoying this one as much as I enjoyed the first 2. There is just a lot going on. So I believe in book 2 we added in a third POV because we had 2 POVs in the first book. And then in this book we have definitely more POVs, but we've lost at least one from the last book. And I don't know, I feel like we're seeing things from lots of different perspectives and I don't quite know why yet. And maybe by the end I will say that that was a brilliant choice, but for me, it's losing some of the connection that I had with the way the story was told in the beginning. I'm on page 233, so I'm about halfway through or close to halfway through, I think. Oh, this is longer than I thought it was. It's almost 600 pages. So I'm like a third of the way through. I definitely will stick with it because I do want to find out what the conclusion of the story is, but I know I gave the second book a lower rating than the first book, and this feels like it is not going to live up to the second book, so I don't know. It's feeling kind of like 3.5 stars right now, but we'll see. And then the only other update I have for you is that I have read some more of the 1619 project. I am now on page 134, so definitely made some progress in this. And wow, is this a hard read? Hearing what Black people have gone through since they were essentially stolen from their lands and brought here, and the way they were treated when they got here and continued to be treated for hundreds and hundreds of years. I just don't understand it. I mean, I understand how it happened and like the system that was put in place that allowed people to treat Black people like they were inhuman and worthless and far less than their white counterparts, but my brain can't understand the logic behind that. Like, I know how it happened, but to me, I don't understand that. I could never look at a Black person and think they were less than me because of the color of their skin. Like, that just doesn't compute to my brain, so I'm struggling to understand where these people were coming from with the way they treated other human beings. It's disgusting and unfair and heartbreaking, and there are definitely things that I did not realize, like just how many hoops and hurdles and roadblocks have been thrown in Black people's way and how hard they've had to claw and scrape for everything. Like, even just the right to be treated as a human being. And I can't imagine that I won't continue to read in this book about instances of that I didn't know about. And I think that it is important that I do know these things because I do have white privilege and I can't get rid of it. There is no way for me to toss it away, unfortunately. But I can at least try to understand these people's history and why they feel the way they do and why they react the way they do to a situation that I would not react that way because white privilege, and to try to be the best ally that I can be. And the more information I have, the more informed I am, the better ally I can be. And it's just heartbreaking to know that this country treated people this way for so incredibly long. Like, I don't know if I had mentioned it in the clip before, but they were literally talking about Black soldiers coming home from World War II and how white people would go after them because they didn't like that Black Americans were serving for our country. And we had literally just been involved in a war about persecuting people for being Jewish and talking about how horrible that was and how wrong that was. And yet we were then doing the same thing to another group of people in our own country. It's despicable. It's despicable. And nobody had ever pointed that out to me before or put that information in front of me. I did not realize that that was still happening here when we were fighting a war to liberate Jewish people and give them the freedom that they so justly deserved while still trying to hold down Black people in our own country. Like, it's just been a real eye-opener, and I am so glad that I decided to pick this book up and give it a read, even though I knew it was going to be much denser than the nonfiction that I have read. And at least at the moment, I definitely would recommend you check it out because, like I said, it's definitely taught me some things I didn't know. So as for tonight, I think I might go back to The Land of Stories because I'm not really feeling like reading this right now. Like I said, it's only like a 3-star read, and I am too tired to read something like this and retain it, and I want to make sure that I take in every word because it's such an important book. So probably going to read some of The Land of Stories and see if I can't finish that out for tomorrow when I wrap this vlog up. I don't know what else I plan on reading. I haven't really made a decision. I have plenty of options, so I'll read something, but so far, so good. I think I'm making some decent progress in some series, so I will check back in with you all again soon. So it's early Sunday morning, which means it's time to wrap up week 1 of the Final Book support group. So since I last checked in with you, I have started Lodestar, which I believe is the longest book on my TBR, but it is a middle grade and it's a reread, so I should be able to get through this rather quickly. I have absolutely been enjoying my reread, so I'm excited to dive back into things with Sophie and Co. and see which of the pieces of Sophie's story happened in this book. I've read some more of this. I am now on page 178 of this book. I think this is probably my least favorite book in the Land of Stories world, but that is basically because it's just adaptations of classic fairy tales. So far, there doesn't seem to be any of the whimsy and the magic and the twists that Chris Colfer has brought to the main series. It's legitimately just adaptations of fairy tales that we grew up with. It would be a really great book to maybe read your kids before bed, like as bedtime stories, but it's not super engaging for me or my favorite. But I will continue reading. Maybe I will stumble across something, though I will say it is interesting to see where he has adapted these from, because like each story says whose adaptations, like Hansel and Gretel is adapted from the Brothers Grimm. Beauty and the Beast is adapted from Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont. So like each story is adapted from different places. I think Hans Christian Andersen is in here too. And I think that's interesting because some of them are familiar stories, but it is not the version of the story I know. So I thought that part is interesting. I found that part a little bit enjoyable, at least in the sense of being surprised when the story didn't go the way I expected it, but it feels in the 3-star range. Like there's nothing bad about it. It's just not what I was expecting given what Chris Colfer has done with the Land of Story series in general. And then the other update I have is that I finished Wildwood Imperium. I think I'm going 3.75 stars on this. It hasn't been my favorite book in the trilogy, though it did get better from where I was at the last time I checked in with you. I did end up enjoying it. I enjoyed the trilogy as a whole, but it's one I can't see myself rereading. I still think the best book in this series was the first one, but overall, I really did enjoy the series and enjoyed my read of it. So, pretty decent first week of the Final Book support group. Like I said, I finished Wildwood Imperium, which crossed a series off my list. I read the 12th book in the Magical Cats Mystery Series. I read the 3rd book in Enola Holmes. I read the second and most current book in the Cordelia Hatmaker series. I read the second and most current book in the Witches of Brooklyn series. And I read Island of Glass, which is the third and final book in the Guardians trilogy. So I finished 2 series, got current in 2 series, and made progress on 2 series. Not bad for a week's work, especially considering I also read part of the Chris Colfer book and started the latest book in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. And I have made progress in my nonfiction, which, while it has nothing to do with the readathon, is still part of the reading I have done this week. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. I mean, even if I am, that's just on top of the amazing week I had. So definitely made some progress in series, because that's 6 series right there. And like I said, I'm working on another 2. So first week down, so far, so good. Hopefully I will continue to make positive strides with my TBR in week 2. I still have plenty of series to go. So my first goal for week 2 is going to be finish Lodestar and the Treasury of Classic Fairy Tales. And then I have this whole stack. All of these are sequels that are on my TBR that I would like to get to this month. So we have Anne of Avonlea, Amia Thing, and the Lost Yeti Treasure, which is the most likely to be completed if I don't touch any other books, because this is the last one I need for my bingo card. The Pilgrims of Rain, which is book 8 in the Pendragon series. Landfall, which is the 3rd book in the Guardian Herd series. City of Illusion, which is the 2nd book in the City of Secrets series. The Starlight Slippers, which is the 3rd and most current book in the 100 Dresses series. Curse of the Forgotten City, which is the 2nd book in the Emblem Island series. And Aurora Burning, which is the 2nd book in the Aurora cycle and is my reread so that I can read book 3 in June. And I almost forgot Fly Away by Kristen Hanna, which I don't have on me because my mom is reading it right now. So I have that to get to as well, which would be the 2nd book in the Firefly Lane duology. So if I finish that, that's another series off my list. So plenty of series continuations to read, and hopefully I will make a dent in that giant stack that I just showed you. So that's it for this week's vlog. All of my social media, including my Discord, is linked in the description below. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me puppy emojis, like this video, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!